Hello and welcome to this webinar. My name is Edouard Gatineau. I'm Project Officer at the UIA Permanent Secretariat, and today I will guide you through this webinar dedicated to UIA partnership. Before going into the details of partnership, the requirements as well as the eligibility rules, I'll do a quick introduction on the call for proposals. So this call will be open from the 15th of December till the end of March 2018. It has a yearly budget of 80 to 100 million euro and will cover 4 topics: adaptation to climate change, air quality, housing, and jobs and skills in the local economy. As part of the preparation of this third call for proposals and as a support to potential applicants, we organize webinars. These webinars are held in 2 steps. So the first step is a pre-recording webinar, such as this one that we organize within the Permanent Secretariat, and this will be followed by online collective Q&A sessions, during which you'll be able to ask us all the questions you have following the webinars. In total, there will be 4 webinars. This one is the first one, devoted to the creation of UIA partnership. The second one is about intervention logic and work plan. The third one is about the budget and making sure all the costs that you foresee are eligible. And the last one will be about project management and communication strategy at local and European level. These webinars are meant to complement the information provided in the 4 applicant seminars that we'll organize in January and February across Europe. Why focusing on partnership? Why this webinar? First of all, because this is one of the key strategic assessment criteria that we'll look at during the evaluation of your application. It accounts for 15% of the total scoring of the project, so it's key to actually explain the rules and the requirements of such partnership. Besides, we also firmly believe and we're convinced that the participative and integrated approach that projects promote is really key to come up with innovative solutions. And previous calls, so the first and the second call, have really shown that co-design, co-creation and co-development really help municipalities putting forward innovative solutions. Today's webinar will look at 2 main aspects. So that's really the questions that we often get, and that's why we wanted to focus this seminar on these 2 main questions. The first question is, what are the main requirements for UIA partnership? What should you look at? And how to answer to this? And the second question is your urban authority eligible and how to check it? So now let's have a look at this first question. What are the main requirements for UIA partnerships? The first requirement is that a project must be submitted by an eligible urban authority. So universities or private sector partners cannot submit an application on their own. This has to be submitted by an eligible urban authority. The second rule is that all the partners involved in an application must be based in the EU. A characteristic of the UIA initiative is that we don't necessarily seek to support transnational partnerships. We are looking for local projects and local partnerships implementing solutions to local challenges. However, if for the purpose of your project you need specific competencies or organizations which are not located within your member states or project area, this is possible. You will just need to explain and justify why you need this specific competence and organization as part of the application form. There's a rule as well that a given urban authority cannot be involved in more than 1 application per call. So this means that a municipality cannot submit 2 different projects in the same call for proposal, even if these 2 projects are submitted under 2 different topics. It's only 1 application, so 1 project per urban authority. But delivery partners do not have such restrictions. So this means that universities or private sector partners can be involved in more than 2 applications in the framework of the same call for proposals. So now let's have a look at partnership as a whole. This is how a partnership looks like in a UIA application. So you can see here that there are 3 main categories of partners. The first one, which is at the very heart of the application, is the main urban authority. So that's the municipality or the organized agglomeration that will have to submit the application. For different reasons, other urban authorities may be associated because of good reasons in terms of the content and the expected results of the project. Besides these urban authorities, delivery partners can be involved as well. So in order to implement the solutions that the urban authority is willing to support and put forward, a set of delivery partners, of organizations can be involved as well in order to implement the different activities in order to reach the solution. And around these two formal type of partners is what we call the wider group of stakeholders. This represents the governance around the project. So this can be stakeholders and actors which are there in terms of different levels of governance, different sectors, and also reaching out to the end users that you aim to engage with. Now, this is the question that we often get. So what do you actually mean and what do you look at in terms of eligible urban authority? So we base our definition on three main criteria, which are all based on Eurostat data. The first criteria and the first element is that an eligible urban authority is a local administrative unit, according to the Eurostat definition. The second point is that the population of this urban authority has to be higher than 50,000 inhabitants. So we're looking for urban authority of a certain size. And the last point is that we're looking for urban authorities. So we use an indicator defined and calculated by Eurostat, which is called the degree of urbanization. This indicator basically looks at the density of population per square kilometer and then define three different types of results. And as part of these three different types of results, we're looking for the two first one, which mean that we're looking for cities, so extremely densely populated areas, as well as towns and suburbs, which are densely populated area as well. Now, in terms of a concrete type of authorities which can apply, there are three different possibilities. The first possibility is that an individual urban authority can apply on its own, so it can be a municipality or a district in case of some larger cities. It can also be organized agglomerations. So I will give you the definitions and the more specific criteria on this in a minute. But in the meantime, that's a possibility for organized agglomerations to apply on their own as well. And for example, it's the case of the French Communauté Urbaine, or the Spanish Mancomunidades, or the Italian Città Metropolitane. The last category actually enables urban authorities to apply jointly. So there may be very good reasons for different urban authorities to join forces and submit a project together. So this is possible in the framework of the UIA initiative. Now, in terms of delivery partners, I mentioned briefly before that this can be any organizations actually implementing some of the activities of the project. In terms of type of organizations, it can be any interested organization, so institutions, agencies, NGOs, private sector, associations. All these organizations, if considered as delivery partners, will have an active role in the implementation of the project. They will be part, really, at the heart of the implementation of the project. And they must be able to bring the knowledge and their expertise into the project design, so before project submission, as well as during their implementation. They will be responsible for the delivery of specific activities and the production of deliverables and outputs as part of the project implementation. And because of that, because of their role and responsibilities, they will have their own budget and thus need to bring their own co-financing to it. As a final recommendation, we recommend projects to select their delivery partners through fair and transparent procedures. We do not require you, or this doesn't imply that you need to launch public procurement procedures to select them, but you need to put in place, or we highly recommend it, that you put in place some public call for interest, or that you use local stakeholders to come up with innovative solutions, so that you can see that there's a fair and transparent procedures in the selection of these delivery partners in the application. And then the third type of partners, let's say, is the wider group of stakeholders. So as mentioned before, this can be, again, any type of organizations genuinely interested in following the project and its results. So it can be institutions, agencies, organizations, private sector, associations, end user, but they will not have an active role or not as active as the delivery partners. They can be involved in the design and implementation of the project. They can feedback to the project, and then they can closely follow the project progress. However, they won't have a specific role in the implementation as such. They won't have a dedicated budget, and therefore they will not have an official status of partner. However, because we are also interested to see how projects actually reach out and engage with these stakeholders, we recommend you and strongly recommend you to design mechanisms to ensure their involvement prior to the project application and submission, as well as during the implementation of the project. And we want to see these mechanisms explained in the application form. So now, let's have a look at the second question of this webinar. Is your urban authority eligible, and how to check it? So I mentioned before the fact that we based the definition of eligibility of the urban authorities on 3 main criteria defined by Eurostat. There's one common table in which you can actually check those 3 different criteria. So this table is the one mentioned on the slide. You can download it from the UIA website as part of the application pack for this third call for proposals. So this table is an Excel table in which you can see different tabs. So there's 1 tab per member state. And for each member state, you will see different columns. And notably, you need to look at column J, so the population, and column I, the degree of urbanizations, which are the 2 main criteria that we look at. Now, as a quick reminder, we saw earlier in the webinar that there are 3 main types, let's say, of urban authorities which can apply. So the individual, the organized agglomerations, and the association of urban authorities jointly applying. I'll go through each of them now because they have some specific cases and specific features in terms of eligibility, and we'll go through some examples to try and make this clear for you. So the first case is in individual urban authorities, so it's any eligible local administrative unit that fulfill the 3 criteria defining an eligible urban authorities. So it's recognized as a local administrative unit by Eurostat. They have a population of above 50,000 inhabitants, and they have a degree of urbanizations of city, towns, and suburbs. Now, how to check it? There are 2 possible cases according to Eurostat data and the data available. The first case is when the actual administrative borders of municipalities and city councils correspond and match perfectly to the local administrative units as defined by Eurostat. That is the case for most EU member states. In this case, number 1, there's a direct check which is possible between the Eurostat correspondence table and the situation of your urban authority. So this is the easiest case, let's say. The second case is when these administrative borders do not correspond, do not match with LAUs as defined by Eurostat. This is notably the case of Portugal, Greece, the United Kingdom, Latvia, Lithuania, Malta, and Ireland. And in this specific case, you need to have a further calculation from the Eurostat correspondence table. So it's not possible to see at the first glance whether or not your eligible authority is eligible. I'll now take 2 quick examples to show you how to do this calculation. But first, in the first case, so the case number 1, when the boundaries actually correspond to LAUs as defined by Eurostat, here's how you can quickly check. So the first case from Italy is the city of Treviso. And you can see here for Treviso, the population is more than 80,000 inhabitants, so it's above the 50,000 threshold. And the degree of urbanization is 1, corresponding to city. So this is, in theory, fully eligible to apply to UA call. The second case is from Romania, so the municipality of Pitești has a population of over 160,000 inhabitants, so way above the minimum threshold, and a degree of urbanization of 1, city as well. So these 2 cases would be eligible to apply to UA. Then, the example for the second case, where the boundaries of the municipality do not match with the LAUs as defined by Eurostat. So, I've taken the example of a Lithuanian district municipality of Klaipėda. According to Eurostat, the LAUs are defined, correspond to elderships, so lower level of government than the actual district municipality. So in the table, correspondence table from Eurostat, you will see each single eldership. So in this case, for Klaipėda, there are 11 constitutive elderships to look at. And what to do in this case? So you need to list all the constitutive elderships or wards in other cases. you have to look at the degree of urbanization and population of each single constitutive eldership, and then make a calculation for the population. So you just add up all the figures for the different elderships. So then you have a total population for the district municipality, which is in this case above the minimum threshold. And then you look at the degree of urbanization. How to do that? You look at the population which is situated in elderships with a code 3, so which are rural elderships, and the population which is located in code 1 or code 2, which is the urban elderships. So in this specific case, when doing the ratio, you can see that the majority of the population actually lives in the rural areas of the district municipality. 71% live in elderships which are considered as rural by Eurostat, and only 29% in elderships that are considered as urban by Eurostat. So in this case, the district municipality of Klaipėda is not eligible because the majority of the population doesn't live in urban areas. Now, if we look at the second type of urban authorities which can apply, it is the organized agglomeration. How do we define organized agglomeration? So we have set up a list of 4 main criteria that we look at to say whether or not a given agglomeration is eligible to apply. So the first one is that this organized agglomeration has to be officially recognized as a tier of local government. So it's not regional and provincial levels, for example. This agglomeration have to be composed only by municipalities and city councils. They need to have specific and exclusive competencies fixed by national law, delegated by the municipalities to the upper level of this organized agglomeration, and these competencies have to be relevant for the policy areas concerned by the UIA project. And finally, organized agglomeration, to be eligible, need to have a specific political and administrative structure. When applying, organized agglomeration are considered as single urban authorities, so they apply on their own, and they represent all the municipalities and city councils involved. And they shall therefore be indicated as main urban authority in the application form. From the experience of the previous calls, here is a list that we draw together with the services of the European Commission of examples of eligible and non-eligible organized agglomerations. In terms of eligible structures, you can have metropolitan areas, intermunicipal associations, and the French Comité de Communes or Comité d'Agglomération, Unione di Comuni in Italy, Mancomunidades in Spain, the combined areas in the UK, and a new feature for this third call for proposals is the European grouping of territorial cooperations, but only those composed solely by municipalities. So these are organized agglomeration that we know are eligible to apply. In terms of non-eligible organized agglomerations, we can, for example, mention the National Associations of Cities. This, for example, doesn't meet all the requirements and criteria that I just mentioned before. The Environment Consortium, regional or natural parks, provinces, regions, counties, tourism districts or leader regions are examples of non-eligible organized agglomerations. Beyond the LAU criteria, so these 4 elements that I mentioned before, we also check the other 2 criteria, which actually is the number of inhabitants and whether or not the majority of the inhabitants live in urban parts of this organized agglomeration. So again, I'll take 2 examples to show you how we approach this. So the first case on the left, so is an organized agglomeration of 4 different cities, city A, B, C, and D. And you can see on the graph here that 3 of these cities, so city A, city B, and city C, have a degree of urbanization of 1, 2, and 2. So this means urban constitutive cities. And the last one, city D, has a degree of urbanization of 3. So it's considered by Eurostat as a rural area. So if we look at altogether, the organized agglomeration has a number of inhabitants which is above the threshold, so more than 50,000 inhabitants. And when calculating the ratio of the population living in urban cities compared to population living in rural part of the organized agglomeration, you can see here that the majority live in the urban part. So this means that this organized agglomeration would be eligible to apply. It is a eligible organized agglomeration as such, has more than 50,000 inhabitants, and all the majority of the population lives in urban LAUs. When we look at the second example on the right, it's the opposite situation. So 3 cities are considered as rural by Eurostat, whereas only 1 is considered as urban. The number of inhabitants is still above 50,000 inhabitants. However, the majority of the population lives in rural part of the organized agglomeration. In this case, the organized agglomeration is considered as ineligible and would be able to apply to UA. Now, the last type, or the last case, is when several urban authorities are willing to apply jointly. So, as I mentioned before, this is possible for many good reasons. You may need to involve more than 1 urban authorities in a project. However, in terms of eligibility, we will look at the total combined number of inhabitants, which needs to be higher than 50,000 inhabitants. Each single urban authority has to be a local administrative unit, so has to be a municipality, has to be an organized agglomeration, and each single urban authority has to be considered as urban by Eurostat. So we'll check each individual constitutive urban authority applying as part of this association of municipalities or organized agglomerations. We have 2 main recommendations when talking about this association of urban authorities playing together. And we have these recommendations for 2 main reasons. The first one is the territorial impact. So we want to make sure that project will have a consistent territorial feature, and also in terms of coherence of the project. The fact of having this contiguity and number of associated urban authority, which is quite limited, ensures somehow a coherence in the project implementation. That is not an eligibility criteria, it's really a recommendation for us, and that's something that we look at in terms of quality evaluation of your application. Here are some examples of association of cities in terms of eligibility and how we check it. So the first one on the left, so it's an association composed by 4 different municipalities or organized agglomeration. The number of inhabitants, so the combined population of these 4 different LAUs is above the threshold, so more than 50,000 inhabitants. And all these urban authorities are considered as cities, towns, and suburbs, according to Eurostat indicator. So this means they're all urban for us. And in this case, this association is eligible to apply. When we look at the other example, again, 3 municipalities in this association. The number of inhabitants is higher than the threshold. However, one of the constitutive municipality is considered as rural by Eurostat. In this case, the whole association is considered as not eligible to apply. In terms of Eurostat data, so we really invite you to do the self-check. So download this Eurostat table, go to your member state tab and check the situation for your LAU or LAUs, depending on the situation in your country. However, we know that there may be some data missing or data not available in the Eurostat table. This is, for example, the case for Greece. Or you have doubts on the accuracy of the data in terms of degree of urbanization or population. If so, please contact us, drop us an email and explain us the situation. And we'll make sure to contact colleagues at Eurostat and at the European Commission to have the latest available data for you. So that is all for this webinar about partnership. I hope that this was valuable to you and brought you some information and relevant information in terms of understanding what is a UIA partnership, but also how to check whether or not your urban authority is eligible to apply. So on the basis of this webinar and the other 3 webinars that will follow, there will be online collective Q&A sessions in February, during which you'll be able to ask and get feedback on your questions. In the meantime, please feel free to contact us should you have any questions about the initiative. Drop us an email at info.uainitiative.eu. Thank you very much for your attention.